The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is a story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hi there, Babylon 5 fans. This is Raul and Jim. How are you doing tonight, Jim?
Doing good, as always.
And you are joining us for another episode of the Babylon Project podcast.
All right.
Tonight, we are talking about A Race Through Dark Places. You know, we talked about last episode Soulmates being a fan favorite.
Right.
This was a fan favorite, too. And you're going to hear that a lot as we go through Season 2. There's a lot of people that will argue Season 2 is the strongest season of the series.
Oh.
But Race Through Dark Places, this is another telepath episode.
Yes.
We get to see everyone's favorite bad guy.
Yes, Al Bester is back.
Uh-huh. And we see something that has been hinted at a little bit initially in this season, as far as a turning point, and at least an initial turning point with Commander Sheridan and Delenn.
Yes. We'll get to that in a little bit, though.
We'll certainly get to that.
Yeah.
And probably the best way to get us going is for you to give us a summary, my friend.
All right, here we go.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
Bester arrives on Babylon 5 to investigate and capture a group of rogue telepaths that have taken refuge there. When he confronts them, they make an attempt to kill him, but he manages to escape. However, Talia is kidnapped. The leader of the rogue telepaths explains to Talia that he was a friend of Jason Ironheart's, and that both Jason and he were experimented on by Psi Corp. Talia talks to other members of the group and learns about the real nature and intent of the Corps. Dr. Franklin talks with Sheridan and explains that he used the clinic that he created in the Qualities of Mercy episode as a kind of underground railroad to smuggle telepaths onto the station. Sheridan, who is no fan of the Psi Corps, has sympathy for the rogues and wants to keep them from suffering further. When Bester locates the telepaths, the rogues, along with Talia, project a vision into Bester's mind that all of the telepaths have been killed. Bester thinks that his job is done, and he leaves the station. In a subplot, Sheridan and Ivanova are informed that they are going to be charged rent for their quarters on the station. While Ivanova seems to accept this, Sheridan stands on his principles and refuses to pay the required sum for his large quarters. After he is locked out and is forced to spend several nights sleeping in his office, he figures out how to cover the rent by taking credits from the Babylon 5's war readiness budget. Delenn also asks Sheridan to dinner as their relationship continues to grow. Well, there it is.
Character. Files. Opened.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
This episode is, as I was saying earlier, not just a fan favorite, but it's one of the most famous episodes of the series. And not just because of the Psi Corp, which really went a long ways toward its fan fame, but because of the dinner date that you mentioned.
Yes. So, yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit.
We'll get to that.
So, we do have some guest cast to talk about.
Yes.
I hope I don't butcher this name too bad.
Apsinakawat.
Yes. He played Telepath 1. He's a Native American and Menominee chief.
Yeah. Was that up north? Is that in Wisconsin or Minnesota?
No, Menominee would be Wisconsin.
Wisconsin?
Yeah, there's a city up there I've driven through.
Uh-huh.
And he was in the United States Marine Corps and is a Vietnam veteran.
And he's a champion traditional dancer.
Yes, he does not have very many credits at all on IMDb. Mostly he's of course, cast as a Native American.
Right.
But he did make this appearance on Babylon 5.
The only other place that I really remember him from was seeing him a few times in Northern Exposure.
Oh, okay. Well, that would make sense.
I'll admit to being a little bit of I would gotta see if that's on Hulu, Amazon, or Netflix. I like that show.
Oh, most likely it is. And then moving right along, we had a gentleman named Brian Cousins who played Rick.
Uh-huh.
For those of you that don't recall, Rick was the good-looking guy that came in right at the beginning of the show and let everybody know that Bester was coming on board.
Okay.
This is his only appearance in Babylon 5. He did have 3 appearances on Next Generation. 2 of those he played a Borg named Croesus.
Oh, that rings a bell.
Yeah. Well, Data's brother Lore was feeding Data emotions.
Right.
And then wound up down on a planet where the Borg, a faction of Borg had broken off.
That's this is what I was remembering. Yeah, he was part of the breakaway Borg.
He was Lore's right-hand man, Croesus.
Exact. Okay, good.
Okay. He played in one of my favorite TV series called Space Above and Beyond. And have you ever seen that, Raul?
No, I still have not seen that.
Oh.
Remember my rule about anything that's sort of serialized? I very rarely will watch it in season 1.
Oh, you got to see this. It's a one. There's no story arc. All the episodes are pretty much one off, and
okay,
you got to see it. And Brian Cousins also made an appearance on Enterprise.
Huh.
And then we had Diane Delascio. She played Telepath number 2, one of the people from down below. This is her only appearance on Babylon 5. And she also was in an episode of Enterprise.
Okay.
Under the category of featuring actors, we had a gentleman named Eddie Allen. He played the Man.
The Man.
Yes. Catherine Cressida as Kat the Bartender, who made 4 appearances on Babylon 5. Voice in the Wilderness Part 1 was one appearance, and then this episode, and then there were 2 others. Mostly she does voiceover work.
Right.
Okay, then we had Judy Levitt, the Psi Cop, and for those of you that are in the know, Judy Levitt is Walter Koenig's wife.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I was wondering at first if this was the same lady that we saw in San Diego.
No.
The burned out San Diego. Because it kind of, there were some similarities.
They do kind of look alike. However, the actress that played 13, or the Psi Cop in the episode Spider in the Web, that was Annie Grindley.
Okay.
So, okay. And then William Allen Young appears as Ironheart, but it's in a flashback, so I think what it is he becomes again. And then we have Giannin Loeffler, who played what they term Lurker.
Yeah, we never got a name for him, did we?
No. He played a P-12 rogue telepath.
Uh-huh.
And this is his second and last appearance on Babylon 5, because he was also Lurker number 2 in the episode Chrysalis.
Right. And here's a question for you.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm going to hold this question. I'm going to hold this question off until we get into the episode, because we'll talk about his second appearance when we see him later.
Okay.
Or his first appearance.
Right. And then he also was in Stargate.
I still wish we could have seen some more work by this guy because, he's got an unusual appearance, but he has great facial control and he's a fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah.
I would have loved to see more of his work.
He's also called Miscellaneous Crew on his IMDb page.
Uh-huh.
So apparently he acts once in a while. He's in the crew other times. I guess it just depends on when they need someone that has a little bit different appearance.
We'll just fill in the gaps, fill in the spaces on lurkers.
Yeah. Okay, and then special guest star Walter Koenig as Alfred Bester.
Absolutely special.
Yes.
We've talked about him before.
Oh, yeah.
And
and who doesn't know Walter Koenig?
Right.
Have you ever had the opportunity to listen, and I don't mean read, but I mean listen to his biography?
No, I haven't.
You've got to do it. Download it and listen to it. There are places in there where if you're listening on the way to or from work, you'll have to pull over and stop.
Funny or bring you to tears?
No, you'll be laughing so hard that you won't be able to control your car.
The bits and pieces that I've seen of him talking here and there, the guy is a total crack up.
He is. He's absolutely... he tells some of the most hilarious stories in his book. I'm not going to go into those. I could talk all night about that book. But, yeah, and there are some other sad incidents that he talks about during his life, but it's just really a good listen. And forget about reading it. You've got to listen to the guy read it.
Okay, so he does his own narration for it.
Yes.
Uh-oh. That means it's got to be good.
The copy that I got off from Audible is unabridged.
Okay. I am not normally a huge audiobook fan, but just from what you've described, this is something that you treat a little different than just an audiobook.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, there's one other audiobook that I would highly recommend, and I know this is way off our subject, but George Takei. His audiobook is incredible. Don't listen to that one while you're driving too much because that guy's voice will just put you to sleep. and I'm not saying that in a bad way. His voice is so smooth, and his book is also very interesting. Especially his experience in the camps. Right. So enough of that.
I've heard him talk about some of that before, though.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Anyway, as you say, enough about that.
Yes. So it's time to go to work.
It's time to go to work.
Initiating plot analysis.
Interesting start out for the episode. It seems that the military is getting in the way of commercial traffic.
Yeah.
So the commercial revenues are down because Earth Force is sending military through. Therefore, Earth wants to charge Susan and Sheridan rent.
Yeah. And that's absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Well, the reasoning is just as absurd. It's Earth Force that's getting in the way of the revenues. Typical government.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yes.
Typical government. Leave it for the government to screw things up and then expect the people that they screw up to pay to fix it.
Yeah. See, now, without knowing what the rent actually is, they're wanting to charge them 30 credits. Was it 30 credits a week?
Yes.
I believe that's what it was. They wanted to charge them 30 credits a week.
30 credits a week.
120 credits. Now, I don't know what their room would normally rent for. It could be absolutely nothing,
It almost sounds like you could equate it to 30 euros or $30.
Yeah.
US. The way Susan is, well, it's not that much.
Yeah, she didn't seem to be too upset about it.
Right. Sheridan, however,
well,
not too happy.
As far as he was concerned, it was the principle of the thing.
It's all about principle.
And I can relate.
And fighting City Hall.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
However, I'll make a statement a little later that I've learned the hard way, unfortunately, a number of times. But, so yeah. Rent.
Well, we switched to something that's a little bit more serious here.
Oh, definitely.
Mars colony. Bester is in the middle of an interrogation.
Trying to get some information out of a poor guy he's got tied into a chair.
Uh-huh.
And just grilling him about something, just wanting some kind of information, not really specifically saying right away what he was looking for.
Right. And you know, this is something you kind of get the feeling for as you go further along with Bester.
Uh-huh.
As creepy and downright nasty as he is, he loves his telepaths.
Yes.
When he says, I really don't want to do this, in this case, I actually believe him.
Yeah, I can understand that.
If it was a normal, he wouldn't hesitate.
Yeah, right at the beginning, you got to realize then that something big is going on that he needs to know about.
Yeah.
He says he captures it right there at the end.
In fact, at this point, you know, later in the conversation, he does mention that there's an underground railroad running
right.
unregistered telepaths.
Yeah, and he catches where it's running through, and he says Babylon 5.
Uh-huh.
As one would expect.
Yeah. And tell me, did that helmet thing that they had his head locked into, did that look like a part from a welding helmet?
It really did. It really did. Now, were those sensors the guy was wearing, or was it just a restraining device?
Restraints, I think.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. But yeah, it did look like something that had been taken off of a welding helmet or something like that.
I will tell you, having been back in my cardiac science days doing some like promo film work with people, and then some of the stuff I've seen back when we lived in Los Angeles, it probably was.
Oh, most likely.
You would be amazed. Yeah, you would be amazed at the kind of junk they'll dig out and those creative geniuses. Hey, we could use this for that.
Well, you know what? And this is completely again off the subject and off the path, but it was something that happened yesterday. I was looking through my Facebook page, and there is Star Trek Phase 2 that that a fan group is doing. And I looked on there, and back in the background of one of the pictures, they're rebuilding the sickbay set. And I saw two trombone mutes sitting in a window frame. And so I typed in, wow, are those trombone mutes? I wonder what those are used for. And the guy came back a couple of minutes later. I'm not sure who he was, but he had a picture of those trombone mutes inside of a cabinet in McCoy's office, sitting right next to each other. You can't see them clearly because they're behind a piece of frosted glass, but you can obviously tell that that's where they are, and they are indeed stone-lined trombone mutes, cup mutes. So look that up if you get a chance. But yeah, it's kind of neat with the stuff they come up with. You know, for set decorating.
Oh, it's clever.
Yeah,
it's clever. It'd be a fun job.
I wish I had the kind of imagination it would take to think up things like that.
I used to, and I'm going to get back into it again someday, do plastic, the plastic scale modeling.
Oh.
And when I was in high school, some of my best pieces were the things that I built off of the broken parts and the scrap plastic and the this and that's to build battles in the corner of my ceiling, space battles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had one of those cool moms, from the... My walls were painted black. I had glow-in-the-dark skies on the ceiling, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could have a battle like that, just small little 1-inch, 2-inch ships. The black threads would blend in with the wall completely. Fluorescent threads for the laser beams or, stretched plastic tubing for the laser. So you could get some beautiful stuff there.
Oh, wow.
My pride and joys were these were the full scale, plastic models, but the Cylon Raider and the Colonial Viper engaged in a dogfight on one end. and I had the snow speeder from Empire Strikes Back. That I took a soldering iron and went as far as doing damage, wing damage on it.
Oh, wow.
It was fun. Anyway, back from the credits.
Yes. No, we're not on credits. We're on we're talking about the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The opening, after Bester pulls the memory out, we go to the opening credits.
Yes.
And we come back to Sheridan making his stand against the rent.
Yeah. This is a battle that he is not going to win.
He's not going to win it by conventional means.
No. He's not going to win it through a confrontation. This is one of those battles that's not winnable.
No, he is going to have to outsmart them.
Right.
He's going to have to outpolitic them.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the course of this, because he's talking to Franklin about this one.
Right, they're walking down the
corridor.
Right.
And Delenn corners him, or borrows him for a few moments.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems she wants to have a date.
Yeah. Which is completely out of the blue. Nobody expected that.
Well, the people who've been watching the show, the fans at this point, were starting to see a little bit of interests there.
Well, yeah, not enough to warrant any future prediction of relationship at this point.
No,
because Delenn.
No, just a few odd. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Sort of thoughts.
Well, and Delenn kind of puts it out that she needs to learn, since she has transformed, that she needs to learn more about human culture.
Right. And, one of her comments there is really very accurate. When has she really, up until this point, just let her hair down, metaphorically speaking? I guess she can do it literally now.
Yeah.
When has she ever really just let her hair down and talk?
Right. Well, she never has.
And just be
not yet.
So that's that's really what the purpose, the intent of this is.
Right.
And what Sheridan says in response, after he says yes.
Yeah. What a universe.
What a universe. Let's let him tell it.
Okay.
One day they're shooting at you, the next day they're taking you out to dinner. What a universe.
Yeah, that definitely sets the stage for Sheridan and Delenn for the rest of this episode.
Yeah, it was definitely out of left field somewhere too.
And it is, this is an episode that's going to go from very serious, very intense with the Bester story arc to very light. Yeah, it's really a conflict of contrasts.
Yeah,
almost
light but not humorous.
Light, but with Sheridan and Delenn, yes. With the getting locked out of their apartment or their quarters for Sheridan and Ivanova, definitely humorous.
No, that's true. Yeah.
But anyway, back to Bester. He knows that railroad is running through Babylon 5, so of course he shows up to handle it himself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Sheridan's first, but definitely not last encounter with Bester.
Yeah, and Ivanova warns him, you might want to look this guy up before you meet him. And she brings up Ironheart.
Yeah.
From Mind War. So.
Well, this is actually only his second appearance on Babylon 5.
Yes. The first one was Mind War, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
And everyone, I remember it was like, ICQ and the news groups, Usenet, they went wild when they found out that Koenig was going to be back reprising that role.
Yeah. Well, he's perfect.
Uh-huh.
And again, I think I'm sure we talked about this before, but, he really had a chance to show his acting chops in Babylon 5. And I don't really feel, other than maybe the movies, but definitely not in the TV series, I don't think he really ever had a chance to really show what a good actor he is.
And even in the movies, he really only got to shine out in Wrath of Khan.
Well, no, he also had some interesting stuff going on in Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the whales...
I know, yeah, I know, but he was almost the comic relief for that one.
Well, that's true.
He really got to act in Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
So, yeah, and Babylon 5 is where Koenig really was able to break the typecast.
Yes, very true.
Anyway, Sheridan's response to Susan was basically that where the Psi Corp is concerned with normals' fears of telepaths, it's almost like they created their own monster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Garibaldi, is sitting there, and he is, even though we know he doesn't like Bester, he doesn't like Psi Corp.
Yep.
But he points out, cooperating with Bester is the law, like it or not.
Yeah. Now, when Bester comes in, was he scanning Talia?
You know something? Every time Bester comes on the show, I wonder if he isn't scanning everybody around him.
Yeah, and more than just listening to the back, he's listening to the background noise.
Right. He's listening for certain things.
But I think you're right. He snoops a lot more than he's legally supposed to.
Well, he was talking to Talia, and, she said, "Are you scanning me?" And he says, "Well, you would know." And she said, "Not if it's a surface scan."
Right. So he does more snooping than he's allowed to. I'm sure you're right.
Well, in Mind War, he was scanning Sinclair before he even walked through the office door.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But in this case, while he's with Talia, someone makes Bester, recognizes him, and he hears the reaction.
Yeah, murderer.
Yep.
But Talia doesn't pick up on it.
No.
Now, could that be a difference in their power levels, then, you think?
P5 versus P12?
Yeah, because...
No, actually, I guess P11. P11 or P12?
I think he's a 12.
I think it could be that. I think it could also be that Talia respects people's privacy.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, I think even more likely is it's a little of both.
Yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, Bester tells her to take down the walls and listen. And there's nothing there. Of course, all we got is background,
right?
Static.
And because the guy realizes that Bester might have hurt him, and he bugs out.
Yeah.
So he runs down below and reports in, and lo and behold, that lurker from Chrysalis, he's a Teep.
Yeah.
In fact, he's more than just a Teep. He seems to be in charge down there.
Well, yeah, and he also mentions that he's quite a powerful telepath in his own right.
Yeah, a little later when he's talking to, when he's giving Talia his story. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Did you notice that why is it that everybody in that group seems to be just a little off?
It is certainly an odd group of people. I will say that.
Well, they've gone out of their way to make themselves, or they've gone out of their way to make them different looking and behavior and things like that. I
think it's that the idea that telepathy is the next stage in human evolution, and it crosses all barriers.
I see.
I think that's the idea that they were at least working with it.
Well, anyway, I just kind of, I put in the notes, it is a bit of a motley crew.
Uh-huh.
So
we switch from here to what, at least for some people, is probably their favorite moment of season 2. The dress.
Yeah.
This is the dress that put LBD into Little Black Dress.
Yeah.
And I think we'll let Delenn and Sheridan describe it themselves.
I apologize for being late, Captain. I decided that as part of learning more about humans, I would try to dress like one tonight. Huh. I hope it does not offend you.
No, not at all. I mean, it's very attractive. Please. Something I can do for you?
It appears my choice was successful. The woman who sold me this told me that I would definitely turn heads.
Yeah, well, if they turn much further, you'd be sued for whiplash. What would you like to start with?
Start with? I don't know. This is all so new to me. What would you recommend?
Well, let's see what we have, huh?
And yes, she was definitely turning a few heads.
Oh, yeah. Now, the question is she turning heads because she is attractive or because she's a Minbari not in uniform?
I think it is a whole lot of both. And there has been this sort of an in and out thing. If you really follow a lot of the female leads in sci-fi, X-Files, I believe they had their little point where they had Scully in an LBD. Warehouse 13 had the big dinner party thing with the little black dress. Even Fringe found a point to get Olivia in that little black dress at one.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't necessarily... Yeah, it seems to have become a thing in the sci-fi genre.
Oh, yeah.
This was the first that I know of. This was another Babylon 5 first. But anyway, as I've said before, I followed the show as it was actually going on Usenet, on AOL, the different boards. And yes, social media was around back in the mid-90s, folks. It didn't just come with Facebook and Twitter. But I'm sorry, it just lit up the boards, and that's obviously is going to have to be what I use for my clip art for cover art for this show.
Okay.
And as big of a deal as that was, it's amazing how hard it is to find clip art of that, or video clip of that.
Oh, huh.
Yeah. Anyway, to the dinner itself. One of the things that just struck me was we mentioned this. I guess in season 1, Voice in the Wilderness.
Yeah.
That was the first time we really got to see Delenn kind of girlish. She's back in that mode. We get to see that side of her again here.
Yeah.
And I guess the way I would describe it is innocently flirty.
Okay. I'll go along with that.
Mm-hmm. And while Sheridan is enjoying dinner, Mr. Garibaldi is chasing down that Underground Railroad.
Yeah, he's looking around, looking into things, suspects Susan as being in charge of that because he knows how much she hates telepaths.
Yeah.
Now, when Garibaldi came into the bar and she started yelling, oh, here's Garibaldi, and Garibaldi says, well, I want to talk to you about business, and did that seem not within Susan's character?
Other than the fact that it looked like she might have had a couple already.
Well, maybe, but that moment made me real uncomfortable. Having her like that, that just wasn't her.
Uh-huh. I can give you that. I can give you that. I would put it mostly off to her having had a couple.
Well, what happens when Susan has a couple is she beats the crap out of people. You know that. We've seen this.
Or breaks large piles of furniture.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but at any rate.
Back to dinner.
Yes.
Sheridan and Delenn are busy, closing the place.
Yeah.
That was definitely a long dinner. Gox. Their answers for dog. Yeah, Gok. That kind of sounds like a cat coughing up a hairball. I hear Gok, and I think Bill the Cat, for those of you who remember Bloom County.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember Bill the cat. And then, of course, at that gawk thing, I had to think back about being eaten alive by cats.
I thought you were going to make a Star Trek comparison here.
No.
Or a Klingon comparison, rather. What
no.
was the Klingon pet?
A Targ?
Was that the little pets?
Are you thinking of Tribbles?
No, the Klingons kind of looks like a cross between a bulldog and a small dinosaur with
Yeah, it's a Targ.
Targ, okay. Oh gosh, but they go into a discussion on laughter.
Yeah. And Sheridan says, well, I've never seen you laugh, and I've never thought of Minbari as laughing.
Uh-huh.
And Delenn points out that it's very important.
Yeah.
That they even study humor.
Mm-hmm. It's something that I've always considered one of the core pieces of sentience.
Ah.
Though it seems my dog has a pretty good grasp of it as well with some of the pranks he'll pull on my son.
Yeah. You gotta wonder.
Uh-huh.
You gotta wonder but one thing that's kind of sad, projecting that to these times. Back then, when they were filming this 20 years ago,
mm-hmm.
we still had the ability to laugh at ourselves.
You're saying that in the collective we?
I mean everybody.
Uh-huh.
And now you have to be so careful and step around everything you say and filter everything before you say it if you think it's humorous, because you might offend somebody.
Unfortunately, there's a sad element of truth there.
Yeah.
I don't think the problem is as much. I'll put it simply. I reached the point some years ago that the most polite way I can put it is, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am going to continue with humor, and I'm going to indulge in it and appreciate it. And like Delenn and Sheridan, if people need to get a life, then that's their problem and not mine. I guess at work I must be something of a cringe for the HR people. I've got one of our devices that we designed and built. It was frustrating, just the panic wrap-up of everything toward the end. So I made a picture of it into a target down to the O-rings. Took it out, hung it up at 50 yards, and put about 25 rounds of good 22 through it, and hung it on my door at work.
Oh. You're lucky someone didn't call the police and report that as being a threatening kind of a thing.
I've got my sword to cover for that, to take care of that.
No, I see.
And yeah, we had speaking of humor. Okay, this is a side jump, but it's funny. It's worth it.
Okay.
We go nuts at Halloween at our office. I am somewhat affiliated with the IT group, though I'm, kind of clinical research and software engineering both. And we did a Viking theme once.
Okay.
Everyone else was, of course, in the plasticky, buy it from the Halloween store type garb.
Right.
My tunic and leggings were fairly authentic. Now I know it's an anachronism, because Vikings did not usually have horns on their helmets, but take the horns off and you could have hit me in the head with a 8-pound sledge and I wouldn't have felt it.
Oh.
The round shield was absolutely authentic, as was the double-bladed axe, though it wasn't. Again, the Vikings didn't generally carry the larger double-bladed axes. Not in general, there's some They normally carry the Franciscan single-bladed axe.
Right.
And I had, again, very much of an anachronism, but most people didn't know the difference. For my backup weapon, I had my straight saber.
Okay.
And that straight saber has stayed at my office. This is where it's going back into our discussion of humor. I have been known to use this saber. It's a real saber. It's got an edge. It's got a few nicks in it that I still have to grind out from sparring with it. I've been known to use this as a pointer in meetings.
Oh.
Our CEO was going to have to make a phone call, and it was going to be potentially a contentious one. So I stuck a little note on it. In case you need to make some attitude adjustments, laid it across his chair at his desk, and I was about to head on down the stairs. Around two corners, a zigzag of like 2 or 3 corners away,
right?
I hear him bust out laughing. So it's like, I guess he must have made it back to his office.
Oh, well, and see, it's a whole different situation in education. We do have to be very careful. I own a full-size batleth, and a student asked me, hey, bring that to school. I'd like to see it. And it's like, no, I can't bring that to school.
Yeah.
It's a sword. I can't bring it in the building. It's a weapon. Sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I
was actually going to bring the sword home. And I asked people, keep it or leave it. And, it had been there for years. And it apparently it is so associated with me that it's like, no, you can't take it home. You've got to leave it here.
Well, I'll tell you what, speaking of Halloween, I was questioned when I brought my phaser
good heavens.
to school. Yes. I brought my hand phaser. It's a season 1 hand phaser. And I was told that, that's kind of a questionable area there.
Well, my son's solution to this was, okay, fine, in preschool. Fine, you can't bring guns? All right. You can't bring any sort of real weapon? All right. This was preschool, so, okay. He brought his lightsaber for show and tell. And proceeded to show them fighting techniques.
Oh, how did that go over?
They really couldn't say anything because technically he hadn't violated their policy.
Well, we have gone way off subject here.
We are so far off subject. I'll leave the story. Of when they dressed me as an Arab and marched me around at gunpoint for another time.
Oh yes, please do.
Like I said, sense of humor, folks.
Yeah.
Gotta have a sense of humor.
Yeah. All right, so...
Speaking of humor...
Well, Bester. We're back to Bester now.
Calling Talia very late, and there was no humor at all in that.
No, it gets her out of bed, and he's on the other line there, and she comes up in this slinky little thing that she's wearing, and immediately covers up with a robe.
And it seems that he wants to have breakfast with her.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Just talk.
Yeah.
Just like Dylan, he just wants to talk.
Baloney. We know Bester doesn't do anything without having an ulterior motive.
Yeah, there's definitely something more than breakfast here.
Yeah, and I think he's trying to figure out exactly what Talia is all about.
And I think Talia finally figures this out because the light bulb goes off. She remembers that Jason is becoming.
Yes.
So, look, okay, play the clip. It's a shorty. It's just a few seconds. This is why I keep mocking it.
His name is Jason Ironheart.
We were lovers. Do you know what it's like when telepaths make love, Commander?
There is no more Jason. I am something else. I am becoming.
Becoming what?
Everything.
He came to say goodbye, Commander.
All right, can you blame me?
No, And I think we talked about this when we talked about
ad nauseum.
That when we talked about that episode, Mind War.
And if we get on it, we will get distracted again. I know.
Well, yeah, and I think our conclusion was, at least mine was, is it was really overly dramatic.
But it was completely within the character. Right. It wasn't by accident.
No.
We decided that it was not by accident.
Exactly.
But what's important of it is that Talia has realized that Bester can't get into her mind.
Right. Bester suspects her, and we see here that there is more to her gift that she got from Ironheart than what they let on.
Yeah, you remember that penny she was able to make wiggle last time?
Well, I think, didn't she make it fly into the wall too, if I recall?
This time she did. It was in this episode.
There's more to that gift than telekinesis.
Right, much more.
Yeah.
Lightening us up a bit. Susan and Sheridan are locked out.
See, I told you they're not going to win. Sheridan is not going to win this fight.
That was just a shot across the bow.
Yeah.
On a switch, in fact, we kind of switch back and forth between Sheridan and this.
Right.
The telepaths. The underground telepaths are arming for war.
Yeah, it sure looks like it.
They're not going to go down without a fight.
No.
And why the nursery rhyme?
Well,
I mean, I get the principle, but...
Yeah, well, if they're focusing on something other than their thoughts, nobody's going to pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know... Well, of course, I've asked you not to sing, but when
Hey, think about that way. That'd be an offensive weapon against telepaths.
Yeah, but
and the hearing.
When you're singing, you're engaged in so many different activities at the same time. You can't really think about anything else.
Uh-huh.
So, it's just a masking device for telepaths.
Okay.
At least that's what I think it is.
Okay, makes sense. Makes good sense. Sheridan is going to room with Susan in his office now.
Yeah, they're bedding down in the office. He in his office chair, which I can't imagine could be comfortable even a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And Susan gets the couch.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a case of Sheridan being glad he made it through the night with his life.
He should be.
I mean, let's face it. He's the roomie you want to strangle.
Yeah, he was definitely obnoxious.
And the knock-knock joke, oh, good Lord.
Well, Chrissy used to do knock-knock jokes. She started doing knock-knock jokes when she was 3.
Uh-huh.
One she came up with was knock-knock, who's there? Oh, I can't remember. Something about hammerhead
See, I
sharks.
can't remember. Good, thank you. I feel so much better. I cannot remember knock-knock jokes for the life of me.
Oh, well, I know a few, but I won't go there because I don't want to be accused of being like Sheridan.
We don't want to lose our clean rate. Oh, okay.
Oh, one of Chrissy's favorite jokes she made up was why did the television cross the road? Because it wanted to be a flat screen.
Okay.
Yeah, she made that one up.
Moving on.
Well, she was 3 for crying out loud. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
She still can't tell a joke.
One thing I will say about Sheridan at this point is obnoxious jokes, lame jokes aside, he definitely seems to be smitten by Delenn.
Yeah, apparently.
Like I said, we got little teeny tiny momentary flashes of it before.
Yeah.
And at this point, he definitely seems smitten.
Well, he's at least very happy with himself that she thought he was a good guy, I guess,
Uh-huh. Now, things definitely turn a little darker here.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to say this. A public attack on Bester, what were these telepaths thinking?
They were thinking that to get Bester occupied so they could kidnap Talia.
You think that was the real purpose behind it?
I absolutely do. I'm convinced that it was a smokescreen going after Bester, keeping him busy, grab Talia, and take off.
Yeah. Well, Bester certainly thinks it's all about him, but he's such an egomaniac. He seems to think everything is all about him.
Well, it seems like that's kind of a strong telepath trait is being...
Yeah, Mike's certainly cranky about it.
Oh, well, yeah. Of course, we know that Mike is interested in Talia anyway.
Yep. But anyway, like you said, they use this as a means of grabbing Talia.
Mm-hmm.
And the underground has her. And their leader just wants to talk to her. And he wants to meet Sheridan.
Right. Did you notice the lighting and the music at the beginning of that scene with her?
Creepy.
Yeah. Now, again, here is something where they're mysticizing the telepaths.
Yeah, well, you see a lot of creepy lighting in down below.
Yeah.
As well.
It's a dark place. But see, now, again, they're taking these telepaths and setting them apart from everybody else, when my thought would be is they would just like to be like everybody else, be able to come and go as they please, have jobs as they please, and so forth and so on.
I think it's in a way that might be a part of that.
Uh-huh.
And I think the words that you said were absolutely right. They want to be just like everybody else. But I think the context of that is beyond what you're simply saying. They just want to be who they are.
Oh, okay.
And I've got a couple of items to talk about in the end here, and it's going to definitely go into that direction.
Uh-huh.
When we get into a little more general. They're going to use Franklin as the messenger boy.
Yeah, very interesting. And then they're telling their stories.
To Talia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they seem like regular people. As they're talking about their story, the lighting is not so goofy, the music is not so weird, and they're just like normal people relating experiences that were not pleasant.
Yeah. And there's a reference to, there's some references throughout the series to the Psi Corp as jackbooted thugs.
Yeah.
There's definitely, when you hear some of the stuff in the stories, it's definitely a little bit of Mengele versus SS troops.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And in fact, when you, for me, when I first started watching the episode originally, they talk about Underground Railroad, of course, being here in America.
Yes.
You think U.S. Civil War Underground Railroad. And that's not the Underground Railroad they're talking about at all.
No.
It is the Underground Railroad getting the Jews out of Germany or out of the Nazi occupation during World War II that they're referring to.
Right.
And that's the context of it.
Yeah.
And in fact, Garibaldi's, this is where we see some of Garibaldi's moral conflict here. He's got info on the railroad, and he does what he's required to do as far as informing Bester.
Right.
And he does not buy Bester's little, I'm just a normal guy like you pitch.
Well, he was really, I don't know how to put it. Oh, Mr. Garibaldi, you may not believe this, but I have a wife and a 5-year-old daughter, and we like to go out on, and he's talking like, he's talking down to Garibaldi.
Yeah. And Hitler's inner circle liked Wagner.
Yeah.
And you really want, and if that sounds like a harsh contrast, take this and go straight back to the stories because that's what this does. It goes back to the story, Talia getting the rest of the stories here.
Mm-hmm.
The Corps has no hesitation for murder. It has no hesitation for forced breeding. We have an idea the extent to which they have no hesitation for human experimentation.
Yeah.
It's an apt contrast.
Yeah. And consequently, we're getting the inside story on Psi Corp.
Yep. And it turns out that lurker And that's the story that's saved for the end. And as you say, getting the inside story.
Mm-hmm.
He was Ironheart's friend.
Yeah, that was a little surprising.
And not simply his friend, he was in the same set of experiments with him that created Ironheart. He didn't go as far, but he knows what had happened with Ironheart. And apparently Ironheart helped set this whole thing up with him, and he knows Jason did something to her.
Yeah. And they are taking a huge leap of faith here, asking Talia to break the law. And so far, Talia has played it right, straight and narrow all the way through till the last couple of episodes where she was not real sure about it, meaning she was halfway there, as that telepath said earlier in the episode. And now he's asking her to go the rest of the way.
I think he is such a powerful telepath. If he's been turned into a P-12, like he said, or higher, I think he's powerful enough to know where Talia's mind really is, and get her enough to know where she's going to fall at the end of the day, particularly knowing she has a background with Jason Ironheart.
Right.
Unfortunately, guess where Bester's going? But did you really think he would wait?
Heck no. No, Bester is one of those that if the job's going to get done, he's going to do it himself.
Yeah.
Plus he gets all the glory and all the accolades for doing that.
Well, bad timing for Sheridan, though, because it means he's going to be there right in the middle of everything.
Right.
And making things look even worse. It turns out, Franklin is running the Underground Railroad.
That blew me away. I wasn't expecting really anybody to be doing this willingly. However, Franklin tells his story, and it's definitely for humanitarian reasons, and we find out that the clinic that he was running in Down Below was a front for this project.
Yeah, and one of the other things that happens in this whole conversation with Franklin is, Sheridan's more than a little honked off here.
Oh yeah.
And that's when Talia comes up and says, no, you need to listen to these people.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything else, that's what gets Sheridan to give them an ear.
Yes.
And this is when we get word that Bester is on his way.
Yeah.
They're in a bit of an understandable panic, but Talia thinks she has a way out.
Yeah.
Now, I love that question. What happens when the gloves come off?
Well, apparently it multiplies their power.
With the hand-to-hand contact?
Yes.
I think there was a bit of a double entendre there, too. And we just a lot of the questions there, like when Talia says, like when Talia talks about knowing where her loyalties lie. Well, she wasn't lying to Bester when she said that.
No.
But, my wife, did you catch and this happens throughout this episode, the bits and pieces of the Ironheart theme coming and going throughout?
Yeah.
It's like just before you get the Ironheart music comes into the background, and then you get the massacre.
Right.
And I will tell you what, the first time I saw that, I'm sitting there thinking, what the explicative? Did that not catch you? Like, what is going on here?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it certainly, and then Bester's obviously convinced of where her loyalty lies.
Yes.
And it turns out at the end, after they've strung us all along, that they put thoughts, and I think it's mostly her, that they put thoughts in Bester that would make Professor Xavier proud.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to bring up some X-Men stuff in a few moments here.
And that whole thing really sucked me in. I mean, I thought Talia went rogue totally, or was acting like she was going rogue totally, and then turned and started shooting at these people And I'll tell you what, it sucked me in. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was really, really great writing here.
It was so seamless.
And great acting.
Yes.
One of the things that just, I would have liked to have seen her full story the way Straczynski had it planned.
Uh-huh.
It's a shame we don't get to see it. And yes, I know that a lot of, most of it gets carried through with Lita, but it's still a bit ragged how she gets dropped in season 3.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, Sheridan reads Franklin the Riot Act.
And after that, after Sheridan says, I will turn you in, I will do this, I will do that, it seemed almost like he was saying that because he had to.
He had to.
Yeah,
when it goes into the, I'm not saying what I'm thinking, I'm not thinking what I'm thinking, yeah.
Right.
He was not quite as ticked as he was obligated to be.
Right.
But yes, Talia can keep him out.
Uh-huh.
Bester, that is. Wow.
Yes.
Anyway, now we start to wrap up the pieces.
Right.
Because you keep saying Sheridan can't win as far as fighting City Hall.
Right.
Well, he wins. He gets a solution for the rent issue.
All it is creative accounting.
Exactly. That's the heart and soul of politics.
And if he gets caught, he is going to get sent up.
Oh, I don't think he cares if he gets caught. He uses combat readiness funds.
He didn't win. He cheated and manipulated the system. That's not a win.
In politics, it sure as heck is. He won up to EarthGov. He figured out how to make Earth Central pay for the rent increase themselves.
But that's not a win.
He hoisted them by their own petards. It's a moral victory.
Okay, I'll give you the moral victory.
That was the whole context of his battle to begin with. So
yeah, no, that's true. He,
like a good soldier, he went into this fight with a definition of victory being not coming out of his pocket with regards to the rent.
Coming out of his pocket, he's still paying it. Okay,
no, EarthGov is
just
paying
not
it.
out of his pocket. Okay, not a win. I'm sorry. I'm not going to back off on this. The behavior there was on the most basic level, it was unethical.
Well, I would argue that charging him the rent to begin with was unethical, but...
Yeah, but see, it's, again, we go back to what he said earlier. It's easier to deal with individuals than it is to deal with organizations.
Uh-huh.
I believe that was either last episode or a couple of episodes.
Right. It was recent.
Where Sheridan himself said that. Yeah.
It was recent.
Yeah. So I'm not going to back off on that. It may be a moral victory, but it's not ethical.
This is war, though.
Yes.
This was war. Speaking of ethics, Bester, more Ironheart theme, and he is
right.
Certainly thrown off by Talia.
Not totally, though. He is thrown off, but not totally, because the way he looks back, and it's like there is something going on here.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I mean. There is something going on, and I don't get it.
Yeah, there's something rotten in Denmark, and he's definitely not sure of what it is, and probably would like to find out.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, the final closing scene of the episode, Talia needs to talk. Obviously, she just has had her entire world completely upended.
Right.
Who does she go to? Susan Ivanova.
Yep.
The one who hates telepaths the most. And, Susan's actually very, very sympathetic to Talia, but not to that badge. And that whole final scene of taking off the badge and propping it with that camera shot focused on it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I thought, at least. That was just chilling.
Yeah. and it didn't affect me the same way, I guess. I just thought, well, if Susan decided, I can't sit here and look at this thing and talk to you. And so, there wasn't as much impact for that, for me at least.
For me, and it was, I can tell you where it came from. It had a lot to do with that World War II bit that we saw in the parallel with the Psi Corp.
Ah, okay.
It would be like someone who was wearing the swastika arm patch almost.
Yeah.
Believing they were doing something right.
Yeah, or the SS on the collar, yeah.
Yeah, and doing that same kind of focus, because that's really what the Psi Corp is in this context.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, it's like when you look at that parallel. So it for me, it was just a very powerful shot.
Yeah, in that context, I can understand where you're coming from there.
I do have a couple closing questions, general questions to toss out, but I'm going to ask you if you have any first.
Okay, I don't guarantee answers.
Well, I was going to give you the floor first if you had any.
Me? Not really. I have some things running through my mind as far as Talia is concerned.
Uh-huh.
And her future. Okay.
Ooh,
but of course we're not.
Yeah, let's not go there yet.
Not yet.
You're talking her debriefing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to go there. That's a
Right.
save it. All right. The Lurker, Jason's friend, helping Garibaldi in Chrysalis. Do you really think that was entirely an accident?
Oh.
Think about who we suspect is involved in the president's assassination. Think about what we've learned happening in San Diego, Agent with 13 and Control. I don't think it was entirely accidental that Garibaldi, or that the Lurker was so willing to help Garibaldi and point him in the direction of the conspiracy. He was the one who gave it was this telepath Lurker that gave Garibaldi the clues that he needed, pointed him in the direction he needed to uncover that conspiracy.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the coincidence.
No, I'll tell you what, as far as a coincidence is concerned, I don't think there are any in this entire series.
Nope, not at all.
No, this is planned.
This is, and this is one of the things that I like about the show. This is where everyone who's heard me on here, on the Diner, on Fringe, the Fringe podcasts, on Sci-Fi Christian, and the other places where I've, talked about it. He's got a lot of flexibility, but he has a very solid plan.
Yeah.
As far as where he's going.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
And my other question, and I'm seeing how long we've been running, so I'll make this one a quickie. We have been rewatching at home the entire X-Men film series.
Ah.
And, I had made that comment in my notes about Talia doing a Charles Xavier on Bester.
Uh-huh.
In a lot of ways, especially the way he was on Mars at the beginning of the episode. Did Bester not remind you in some ways, obviously not appearance, but it just in some ways remind you of Magneto?
Okay, you are barking up the wrong tree, because I am not into the X-Men films very much at all. I loved the comic books when I was growing up, but I watched
even in the comic books, he did what he did. He for the sake of mutants. He loved the mutants. His approach was about as sinister as you could get, and let's face it, calling him an egomaniac was mild.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just, and I guess in some ways you can almost take it more of a comic book approach to him than Ian McClellan. But it just hit me seeing that. It's like, okay, there's some Magneto elements in this guy. Or am I just nuts?
No, I'm not going to dispute you at all because, as I say, I'm not familiar with the franchise.
Well, this is a case of then. I would like some of the listeners. Well, again, how about the comics though?
Oh, you're talking. I mean, wow. Come on,
decades
now.
ago. Yeah, going back to the early 70s. I know.
We're talking
or
about
60s if you went far enough back.
Well, I graduated in 76, and I quit reading comic books when I got out of 9th grade.
Okay.
So yeah, we're talking early 70s is the last time I picked up a comic.
We're talking a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, folks, if you're listening, seriously, tell us what you think.
Yeah.
This would be one where I would love to have some other opinions.
Yeah.
Either tell me I'm nuts or tell me I'm right.
I mean, for crying out loud, comic books were 65 cents.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, my friend.
Yeah.
We have gone incredibly long here on this.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think our audience minds, though.
Oh, this episode just has so much to it. So I actually, my notes were shorter than my typical notes, so I didn't think we would go as long.
No.
Amazing how that works out.
Yeah, it's pretty well self-explanatory. It's a great episode.
Uh-huh.
It's very tight. It's got 3 little storylines in it that are related in one way or another, except for the rent increase.
Yeah.
So
we would love to hear your thoughts, everyone.
And the lady at the end of the show will explain how.
Yep. Oh, I know I had fun tonight. I just love sitting down and talking these things, and this was a great opportunity. So
yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun to talk about.
Yep. And it's going to be like this the rest of the series. And yes, folks, I am including season 5 with that. I know it gets a lot of grief, but there's more to season 5 than you think once you do this rewatch.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, anything else to add?
No, that about covers it, I think.
Well, in that case, I think we can confidently say that there was no boom today.
No, we avoided the boom today. What about tomorrow?
Oh, there's always a boom tomorrow.
Yep, always boom.
Good night, everyone.
Good night now.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast @gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.